Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
This is America's Outdoor Talk program.
Are you ready to get rowdy?
Outdoors This Week with your host, Alex Langer. Alex Langer. We've got fishing.
Believe me, folks, I have been there, and the fishing has been tremendous.
Hiking.
Adios. Have a nice trip.
Camping.
This is a real adventure.
How do you know?
When you're an experienced woodsman like me, you get a feel for these things.
Oh, really?
Heck, we've even got kayaking.
I'm going to show you kids the time of your life.
We've got all the info you need for a safe and fun day in the sun.
It's a darn good thing we found you when we did. There's something horrible roaming these woods.
And you've got Outdoors This Week. Outdoors This Week. And now, here's your host, Alex Langer.
Why, thank you, Mr. Announcer. That would be me. And we have a special treat for you today. We have two legends. We usually just have one legend, but today we have two. First of all, we have Wade Bourne with us. Wade, I'm sure you know, does a segment with us every week called Wired to Fish or Wired to Hunt, depending on the month. He is with us today in person. And then we have Mike Jackson, who we have, I think he's going to be live, right,
I'm
Lynn?
hoping, yeah.
I mean, sometimes he's not live, but
No.
certainly he's not dead. That would be crazy. That would be crazy bringing on dead people. Why would we do that? All right, Lynn. So that's what we got. Let me tell you about Wade Bourne. Wade is Mr. Duck. He used to be the host of Ducks Unlimited Television, and he has since then become like the managing editor of the newsletter and the magazine, and he still does surveys. He actually goes out and he interviews the ducks. He goes, "Hello, Mr. Duck," and they go, "Quack, quack." I'm just kidding. Wade's going to be here with us today. We're going to be talking about the different duck flyways and what he thinks the season is going to be like this year. Then we'll have Mr. Jackson with us, and Mr. Jackson is going to talk about whatever he pleases, like he always does. It's been very, very, very hot in Chicagoland this year. Mike is going to be telling us all about that. I guess the streets are actually buckling. Sometimes the bodies come up, the ones that weren't buried properly. We're going to ask him about that too. He's fishing a lot of little ponds despite the heat. It's crazy heat out there, Lynn. It's in the hundreds.
I know. I thought it was warm here. I can't even imagine that.
For one time, I'm very, very glad I'm in New England. So, and then we have all the other usual suspects, your usual Southern gentlemen, Lynn. We have Sammy Lee. I don't know about Sammy's marital status.
I don't know.
I know that he's tall and he's very handsome, Lynn.
Oh, nice.
But I can't speak for his marital status. So he may be married, he may not be. I have no idea. Then we have Wade Bourne, and then we have, of course, Larry Whiteley from Bass Pro Shops. And then we have Ron Linder.
Ron Linder.
We got Ron. I don't want to forget Ron. I can't forget Ron. He's starting out the show, and we'll be right back with all that.
Hang tight. More of America's Outdoor Talk program, Outdoors This Week, after this.
Hi, folks. Ron Linder here, brought to you by Trigger X Soft Plastic Lures. Anyway, folks, I've been doing some real searching the web, and I realized how much has changed in the last couple of years in this whole grand old game of fishing. A lot of the magazines that were ain't no more. A lot of them are gone, and the other ones that are gone are very, very thin. Little by little, how people get their news and act on it is changing. I myself am on Facebook. Now, my grandson, Nicky, who's home from college here, he just started me tweeting. I said, what's tweeting? He said, nope, you got to start tweeting. If you're going to be up on this game and you're going to be in this news up and back, you got to get down on it. So not only do we work on our website and all do the Facebook, Ron Linder Facebook, we also do tweeting. So when we got news items, these are one-sentence items about things that are happening, news breaks that people can look up on your website. This is how a lot of this stuff is going. A lot of magazines, like when I was chairman of the In-Fisherman Communications Network, of course, we had a number of magazines. We didn't have a magazine. We had the Walleye Insider, the Catfish Insider. We had numbers of one-timers that would come out, bass, muskie, etc. it's just changed. A lot of these magazines are no more. They dropped the Walleye Insider. There's only one walleye magazine out there right now by FLW that is strictly walleye. Only one. And at one time there was about 4, and that were dedicated strictly to walleye. Just like you have magazines that are strictly dedicated to muskie. You've got one out there left, and that's the Muskie Hunter. There used to be 3. There's steelhead magazines that are only about steelhead, but they are really, and then of course you got numbers of bass magazines that continue to proliferate out there. But a lot of them are becoming thinner. And I guess what's happening is the way people get their news and what they do and where they get it is just going through an absolute revolution. And we over here we always used to pride ourselves. We call ourselves the angling edge or whatever, some word like that. We always pride ourselves being the tip of the spear, and that's the reason. So Nikki's got me tweeting. I said, and I have this new phone that is complicated. He's got to sit there and show me how to do this. You pull out a little pad here so my fingers can type this stuff in, and I can go in there and iPad this and go here and do this and here's the one. We were out fishing the other day, yesterday evening. Nikki and I were out there. It's my grandson, and we were catching some fish, and he gave me his phone, which is this new modern phone, and I shot pictures of him in a 2-step version that we're going to post on Facebook. And we got through with that, and he sent it in immediately, and this thing was posted before we left the lake. And this was a video. This is about, 60 seconds, 30 seconds of him doing what they call kneeling and reeling crankbaiting. What he did is he threw the crankbait out, he kneeled down and put the rod tip in the water in order to get it down to the depth that he wanted to. So he gave an absolute explanation. We shot it right there, got it out there, and he pulled out this little keypad thing, click, 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 and sent it in, and when we got back, it was posted. Each guy here at Linder's Angling Edge has a Facebook site. All of us are topped out. We're all over 5,000. Some of them went to open-ended. I and James have stayed in. We've locked it down. We're a little over 5,000. We don't want no more. We're trying to lock it down. I think I've 5,200 or something. These 5,100, something like that. Some of them are way open, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Troy Linder is just starting to put a site up. But this is the way people are doing things, and they are communicating, and they are interacting. That's the other part. I mean, I get interaction from other folks all the time. In fact, I've got one radio lady that I do recordings with. When I want to get a hold of her, I don't call her anymore. I just post a little note on her Facebook. Say, why don't you give me a call? Isn't that something? Well, that's it for this week. So, Alex, if you're looking at this thing, I hope you're tweeting. This is the next thing you got to do. You got to get Lynn to get you a phone, and you got to start tweeting. Until later, see you later, folks.
Never forget, coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Would you like to spend less time on the couch and more time in the fresh air? Would you like your kids to stare at a bobber instead of the TV? Would you gladly trade in your microwave for a Dutch oven? Then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
The 4th of July is much more than fireworks, parades, picnics, baseball games, and family cookouts. Sadly, a lot of people have forgotten why we really celebrate this day. Adults need to be reminded, and kids need to learn that the 4th of July should be a time we pause to honor those who served and are serving so we might enjoy the freedoms we have today. The men and women who died on the beaches of Normandy, the fields of Vietnam, the deserts of Iraq, the mountains of Afghanistan, the buildings in New York and Washington, D.C., and so many other places around the world, these people should never be forgotten. It is because of their sacrifices we can worship as we please and have the freedom to say what we want. To all of you men and women who served our country, I salute you and thank you and all those that came before you and after you. Enjoy the 4th of July, but don't forget why we celebrate it. God bless America. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Thanks a lot, Larry Whiteley, and God bless America. That's right. We don't hear that anymore. We don't. It's fallen out of fashion, and it's in fashion here on Outdoors This Week. Listen, I'm excited about my next guest because he's got one of the most recognized names in the outdoors. He's a full-time outdoor broadcaster and writer whose work appears regularly before national listening, viewing, and reading audiences. Wade is the guy that does our Wire to Fish and Wire to Hunt features. He's here live with us this week. He is also the editor-at-large for Ducks Unlimited magazine. He is an inductee into the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame and also into the Legends Outdoor Hall of Fame. It's Ducks Unlimited's 75th anniversary. Wade, first of all, welcome to the program.
Hey, Alex, how you doing? Will you indulge me one thing?
Yes.
I just heard the spot about honoring the servicemen and women on the 4th of July weekend, and I just want to reiterate that. I live next to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the 101st Airborne Division, and I have many, many friends in that storied Army division, and I'm telling you the sacrifices they make for our country, that their families make, would overwhelm most people if they knew the true stories of these guys. They are modern American heroes. I salute them, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank Bass Pro Shop for doing likewise.
I was flying back on a plane from the Bassmaster Classic, and, you know, there were service people with missing legs that were getting on the plane like it's nothing, you know. These people have gone through horror on our behalf so we can hunt and fish. So I thank you for that, Wade.
Well, thank you for just letting me make that statement. Now let's talk ducks.
Now let's talk ducks. It's the 75th anniversary of Ducks Unlimited. Who knew? I didn't know that, Wade. What kind of progress have they made through the years?
Let me tell you, Alex, it's... you know, I don't know really where to start. Ducks Unlimited was founded back in 1937 by a small group of wealthy individuals up in New York State that just had the recognition that there was a problem, that our ducks were disappearing. They were sportsmen. They decided to put their money and their efforts where their heart was, and they just formed this little group and hired an executive director, and if they could come back now and see where their vision has gone, they would be blown away. It's Ducks Unlimited has grown to where we have impacted millions of people, and in turn have impacted tens of or hundreds of millions of acres in the northern prairie. I'm very proud to be affiliated with Ducks Unlimited. I truly believe if DU had not stepped forth and taken this project on, that probably we would not be hunting waterfowl today. We would not be able to enjoy the spectacle of a sky full of ducks and geese. And, you know, it's not just waterfowl. It's all these small habitat projects across America impact a broad span of wildlife. It's just, it's one of, if not the greatest private conservation success stories in the history of the world. I don't mean that flippantly. It's DU has done a wonderful, wonderful job, and continue to do so. You know, the threat is still there, but thank goodness those 5 men started that organization 75 years ago. We reap the benefits of it every day, we sportsmen.
You recently flew with a pilot doing duck surveys over the Canadian prairies. What was it like?
It was really interesting, Alex. I have heard all my life about the waterfowl survey that these pilot biologists fly every year, and they take the data that they collect flying over the prairies, low, over the potholes, counting, 2 men in each plane. One counts ducks on one side and one on the other, and then they compile all their data, and then they pull it all together and send it to Washington, and that gives them some idea every year whether the population will be up or down compared to the long term. And I wondered how valid those numbers were, or how really true the science was, and I came away totally impressed with how these men performed their jobs and their dedication and the and the things that they go through, the places that they fly and stay, and it was an eye-opener for me, and it was a validation to me that our waterfowl are being managed very, very well. Now, can they count every duck on the prairie? Obviously not. But they fly the same little, they call them transect lines. They have little routes across the prairie, and every pilot flies the same route every May, or starting in late April and going into early June. And so from year to year, they have an idea of how the water conditions, the habitat conditions are from one year to the next, and then they have these models that they can plug the numbers into and come out with a fairly accurate. It's obviously a guesstimate.
Wait, we got to take a break, and when we come back, you can continue the story, all right?
I can talk all day about it.
That's right. All right. Folks, we'll be right back with the legendary Wade Bourne. Don't go away.
More of America's favorite outdoor talk program, Outdoors This Week, after these messages.
Wow! Woo! Hold on to that, and that's a good one. Since 1984. Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
On my last program, I began giving you some towing tips to ensure your safety and enjoyment while pulling your boat down the highway this year. Hello, this is Sammy Lee. Today I'll continue telling you some things that should assist you in your angling pursuits. But first, this message.
After a long day at work or on the water, you know what I like to sit down to? A big old plate of U.S. farm-raised catfish. You know, it just doesn't get any better than U.S. farm-raised catfish, because it's the healthiest fish from pond to plate. So at my house, catfish is what's for dinner. U.S. farm-raised catfish. For more information, you ought to visit uscatfish.com.
On my last program, I began telling you some things to consider and look at before you start towing your boat or your camper down the highway this year. Things like be certain to have the correct size of trailer ball and hitch on your towing rig for the size of boat that you're pulling. Also, be certain to match the correct tow vehicle to your boat's size and weight, and how to load the weight of your boat properly to make certain that it doesn't wag like a dog's tail when you're towing down the road. Now, this brings me to my next point. First, never tow with people in your camper or your boat. It isn't legal in most states, and it certainly isn't safe. Secondly, make sure that your trailer lights are working properly. You can get a real short boat if a tractor-trailer rig rear-ends you before sunrise. Let a professional do the original car-to-trailer hookup, and that goes double if you've got a big boat or a trailer with electric brakes. And lastly, pre-flight your rig. That's what airline pilots do, and for the same reason. There's a lot at stake. Make it a habit to do a walk-around. Check safety chains, wiring harnesses, and the weight distribution inside your rig. And be sure to check the engine compartment of your towing vehicle as well. You know, oil, hoses, belts, and transmission fluid. The day you don't do this is the day that some mechanic on the interstate starts grinning at your expense. I'll be back with more Tight Lines after these messages, so don't go away. I hope that some of the towing tips that I've given you over the last couple of days help. But if you'd like more information on towing boats and campers properly, check with your local marine dealer or travel trailer specialist. I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, Tight Lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by UFP, America's leading maker of brake systems for boat trailers. FishMate, the ultimate fishing app for your smartphone. And by U.S. farm-raised catfish, the healthiest fish from pond to plate.
If you like Facebook, you'll love the Sammy Lee page on Facebook. Check out me, Sammy Lee, even more lovable than ever on Facebook.com.
Thank you. There he goes. That was the lovable Sammy Lee, and he is, in fact, lovable. He's a big old guy. Have you ever met Sammy?
I've never met him. I've spoken to him, and he is incredibly charming.
He's about 6'7".
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Don't get any ideas. Listen, I'm excited. The question is, what doesn't Wade Bourne do? He's Mr. Duck. He is the editor of Ducks Unlimited magazine, editor at large, and he also writes for Bassmaster. And he's published God knows how many books. And we're just in the middle of a conversation about the latest duck survey. And Wade, what kind of a year do you think we'll have this year?
Alex, it's looking surprisingly good. We went into the fall last year with very dry conditions up north after an extended wet period, and they had a warm winter, as we all did, and they had very little precipitation, and everybody was talking gloom and doom and dried up potholes and little production this year. Well, guess what? The rains came in the spring, and they fill the potholes up. Or in a lot of places, it's not as good as it has been, but it's far, far better than many people expected it would be. So now I'm talking off the cuff without any look at the final data, but I think we're going to have pretty good production and probably will stay with the liberal framework and see a lot of ducks coming down the flyways this year.
What does it take to have a good duck season?
It takes a combination of things. Obviously, you've got to have good production in the nesting area up north. You've got to have good water in the potholes. You also have to have good upland cover. Ducks nest on dry land, and then when those little ducks hatch out, they go to the potholes. So they go to the water to survive, and then from that point, you've got to have weather to move the ducks down the flyway. I mean, you can have all the ducks in the world, but if they don't migrate, the hunters down in the middle part of the country don't think you got all the ducks in the world. So it's a combination of good production and favorable weather, and those things produce a good duck hunt.
Tell us about what you do with Ducks Unlimited TV.
Right now, I'm sort of the, I hesitate to use the word expert. They use me for waterfowling tips, how-to hunting tips. And I get together. Every show now has about a 2 to 3 minute tip that I host, and sort of, they call me a co-host of the show now, but my input consists of how-to material for hunters, how to do things better.
What's new with Wired to Fish and Wired to Hunt Radio?
What's new?
Yeah.
So, one thing I've sort of gotten into a little bit, I live close to Nashville, Tennessee, and home of the country music industry, and I've got a lot of friends in the music industry up there, and I've started, there are so many country music stars who are avid hunters and fishermen. And I've started interviewing some of those guys and including that in my programming. I went up a week ago and interviewed a star, an artist named Craig Morgan, who also has his own outdoor TV show on the Outdoor Channel. Right. Craig Morgan, All Access Outdoors.
I've seen.
And very nice man. I had met Craig before, but wouldn't consider him an everyday buddy. But we just bonded, and he gave me a great interview, and I'm incorporating that into my shows now. He's talking about how Craig enjoys it. And there's so many things that are in common with the country music industry and the outdoor industry in terms of the people who enjoy the music in the outdoors, use it as a getaway, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sort of including a little more of that in my programming.
Len, get ready for those country music singers. All right, Wade, we got to go. So thank you for being with us. And
always a pleasure, Alex.
We've got your report coming up. I know what it's about, but Wired to Fish or Wired to Hunt is coming up after the next break. And Wade Bourne, thank you. Thank you very much for being with us.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, you take care. Len, do you have a drum roll anywhere on the board?
No, I wish I did.
Because we have... That's fine. Do that again. We have an honored member of the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. The induction to the hall caps off a more than 40-year career in the outdoors. I thought Mike was only 40. How could that be?
I know. He looks so young.
He is so young. Mike Jackson is my next guest here. Like I say, he's an honored member of the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, and he's the outdoor editor for the Chicago Daily Herald, one of Chicago's main 3 daily newspapers, and he broadcasts his weekly outdoor show live from Chicago called Mike Jackson Outdoors, Sunday mornings from 6 to 7 a.m. Central Time, and in Fisherman originators and now television's Angling Edge hosts and producers Alan Ronliner called Jackson's program the best outdoor show in the country. First of all, Mike, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Let me ask you a question, Mike. Do people ever mistake you for the singer Michael Jackson?
They do quite often, and
I figured they would.
So I have to moonwalk across the stage when I'm making a personal appearance.
When's the last time you moonwalked, Mike?
What time is it?
it's about 8:20 in the morning.
Yeah, 7 o'clock your time. This is the last time I moonwalked all the way to the Kaibo.
To the Kaibo?
Yes, that's a Boy Scout term, by the way.
Really? What does it mean?
Bathroom.
Bathroom?
Yes.
We won't have any bathroom humor on this show, Mike. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Listen, first of all, are you fishing the Fox Chain of Lakes at all?
No.
Why not? You love the Fox Chain.
Because you tease me about it, and I've been wading a couple of streams in the area and fishing Lake Michigan for carp, as a matter of fact, fly rodding for carp.
All right, we got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to find out all about carp on Lake Michigan. Would you favor us with that information?
Absolutely.
All right, folks, we'll be right back on Outdoors This Week with the legendary, the wonderful, the great Mike Jackson himself.
The bigger the better. Break out the heavy line. I'm hooked on hooking up.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Don't change that dial. Alex will be right back with more of Outdoors This Week after these messages.
How I love the Atlantic. So grab your gear and let's go. I got drinks in the cooler. I got bait in the tank. And when I land that big one, I'll have my proper thing.
In summer, bass like to hold in shady spots like under docks or overhanging limbs. You can't make a regular cast and get a bait into these places, but you can fish them by skipping a lure, like skipping a rock across the water. I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Fish Radio. Today, Bass Pro Shaw Grigsby says when it comes to skipping, you've got to walk before you can run.
More Wired to Fish Radio coming up.
Imagine yourself at the wheel of your boat. You look up and suddenly see another boat headed straight for you on a collision course. Only a few seconds remain to make the right decision. What do? On average, a sportsman dies in a boating accident every other day. Too many sportsmen don't know the basics of boating safety and pay with their lives. I'm Wade Bourne. Do what I did. Take a safe boating course from your U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, Power Squadron, or state boating agency.
Boat responsibly. For more information, visit uscgboating.org.
For a day at the range, it's hard to beat an accurate pistol and lots of .22 long rifle ammunition. Folks at Smith & Wesson couldn't agree more. And the new M&P 22 pistol fits the bill perfectly. The M&P 22 combines the look, feel, and familiar operating features of the trusted M&P series of centerfire pistols. The M&P 22 is perfect for training or simple shooting enjoyment. To learn more about this new M&P rimfire pistol, visit www.smith-wesson.com.
This is Wired to Fish Radio.
Shaw Grigsby skips two baits, a floating frog and a tube lure. By skipping, he can get these baits into tight spots beneath overhanging cover. Now, skipping isn't an easy technique to learn. A lot of people backlash their reels or hang in the cover. Still, Shaw says the only way to learn skipping is to start skipping and get better as you go along.
You do get backlashes, but it's not nearly as bad as you'd think. And what you do is once you start doing it, I was really scared. I go, how are these guys doing this? And, here I am, a professional, and I'm watching these guys just blow them underneath cover. And I'm like, that's incredible. So you just start doing it, and you get a little bit stronger, and learn the thumb. You're keeping your thumb on the reel. And then all of a sudden it's like, it isn't that big a deal. So it's like anything else. You got to, when you're learn to ride a bicycle, you start with training wheels, and then you get to the little tricycle, then you get to the single, and you're riding slow, and then all of a sudden you're on a 10-speed and you're ripping. That's the same thing. So don't try to be a professional in an hour, okay? Just start to learn your techniques and play with those casts. And I use that same cast on tube baits, skipping tubes. I've skipped all kinds of baits like that under docks and under cover and brush. So once you learn that skip cast, you just spend some time doing it, and you'll figure it out.
That's Shaw Grigsby with some good advice for skip casting a frog or tube lure. And that's also today's Wired to Fish Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening. Get outside.
Thanks, Wade. No, you get outside. Don't tell me to get outside, Wade. You get outside. We have a legend with us today, none other than a member of the National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Mike Jackson himself. He is the outdoor editor of one of Chicago's great newspapers, the Chicago Daily Herald, and he's the outdoor editor, and we're just talking about fishing for carp. Now, Mike, carp are not considered a game fish. Am I correct?
At least not in the United States, but it's getting to the point where more people are recognizing it as a tremendous game fish. In Europe, in England in particular, they treasure the big carp fishing. Yugoslavia, or the former Yugoslavia, Serbia, they catch huge carp there. And one of my friends has been fishing for carp for years using a fly rod, and I used to do it, and I got away from it, and I went back to it and caught several the other day in the bristling heat. By the way, we've had 105 degrees here in the Chicago metro area, and it's been really crazy.
Your roads were buckling from the heat.
Yep.
We have them buckle from the rain and snow in New England, but never from heat.
Yeah, well, it's Illinois, the most corrupt state in the Union, so buckling is a common...
Are any bodies coming up out of the ground?
I can't comment about that. May I go back to the carp fish?
Please do. I didn't mean to so rudely interrupt, which I guess I did.
Of course you did. And the point is that...
Don't have to agree with everything I say.
Well, you're the boss. I've got to do that, you know. The fact remains is that the carp fishing along the shorelines of Lake Michigan is unbelievable, all the way from the Michigan side of the lake up to northern Wisconsin, Door County.
Say Wisconsin again. I love how you say that. Wisconsin. Great. Give him a hand.
That's it. That's it. All right, close up shop. We're done. Anyway, using a heavy fly rod, a 9-weight fly rod, and several different kinds of flies that I tie with that sink quickly. And these carp go nuts. I add some brown color to the flies that I tied, imitating crayfish. And that's a major diet for these carp. Now, the biggest one I've had so far the other day was 10.5 pounds. That took almost an hour to bring in.
Really? A 10.5-pound carp took an hour?
That's small, considering I've caught 30-pound and 35-pound carp.
We used to catch them on corn, 35 and 40 pounds in the Charles River in Boston.
Excellent bait. A lot of people use corn, and considering the amount of corn you put out, it's no matter how simple it is to catch them.
We have more corn here than you want to shake a stick at.
Absolutely, but in all seriousness, the carp fishing industry is growing, and it's growing because of popular names in the fly fishing industry have been going after the carp in the various Great Lakes outlets. And Lake Michigan is one hot spot for big carp. Al Linder was fishing big carp on Lake Erie several years ago during a major walleye tournament, and they did a show on catching big carp on light tackle.
It is gaining popularity. He interviewed a guy named Dave Maynard out of Denver that fly fishes for carp, and our buddy Don Meisner, whom you know, just hosted the Carp Fishing Championship, the World Championship.
Turns their noses up at carp fishing because they don't understand. Pure locomotive power from these fish, and they can strip line off a casting reel, spinning reel, and especially a fly reel, and it's a battle. You have to be a learned angler to catch these things.
You know who else is getting into carp fishing? Ray Scott, your buddy.
Hey, he realizes a good deal.
I know. He knows when to get in on a trend that he sees coming up. This is coming up fast. Mike, are these carp difficult to catch, or are they pretty simple?
Well, it's... For most people, there's a carp tournament every year on the Chicago River right near the locks, which open up into Lake Michigan. This is the standard carp, not these silver carp or Asian carp. These are the standard everyday carp, and people catch some big 30-pounders. And they've got very elaborate rigs that are based on the European-style fishing. They have sections roped off. They're called pegs in Europe, where each angler is assigned to a peg. And they throw chum out to the carp, and the carp goes for it. But here in the Chicago, downtown Chicago, the tournaments are just tremendous, and you see some huge fish come in. I can tell you flat out that I'm enamored with fly fishing for carp because it's another element added to the bag of tricks. And I've done big tarpon, bonefish, and permit in the saltwater, barracuda as well on the fly rod. Now the carp is the final challenge and it's very difficult.
On that note, we got to end the show.
All right.
Thanks for being with us. And, folks, thank you for joining us and the legendary Mike Jackson. We'll be back at you next time on Outdoors This Week. Have a good weekend, and bye-bye.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.